Chad Weiss, 22 years old from Chilliwack, British Columbia, and this is my story. Yeah, like growing up, I had like a pretty average childhood, I'd say. I'd say I was pretty lucky in a lot of ways. I had both my parents living in the house. I had two younger brothers who were super cool, and just like a pretty loving environment, and always had the support from lots of family and friends, and that was such a blessing over the years. Everything was pretty normal, and just got introduced to action sports and extreme sports at a really young age, and raced BMX growing up, skateboarded lots, rode some dirt bikes as well. And that's kind of what just kept me going, just a happy-go-lucky kid all around, just had the support of my parents, which I'll never be able to thank them enough for. And that's just how everything went down as a young kid, I guess I'd say. And then things kind of just took a big turn for the worst right around when I was 13. So without beating around the bush a bunch for this situation, when I was 13 years old, I was sexually abused and raped by a family friend. I just kind of want to dive into some of the details on that, but I don't want to get too into it, just because I don't want to focus on all the negatives of it, or that negative time in my life. It's also pretty hard to talk about. Grooming happens in so many ways, and I've learned so much about it over the years and how it works, but how everything worked with my situation. This lady basically pretended to just be the good, cool mom, but overly cool. But it wasn't until after a while where she started doing some more suspicious sort of things, and at first I kind of thought, oh yeah, this is kind of weird. And then one day we were on a drive, and then that's kind of when things all changed. After everything happened, it was so crazy because she fully just manipulated me into thinking that everything was either my fault, or if I told anybody that I would be in trouble. And I just felt this horrible guilt and shame towards the whole situation. It's just so crazy, So a couple years went by, and I didn't tell anybody, and then it was around the start of grade 10. I just had some pretty big traumatic events happen in my life around that time. It was just bad event after bad event, and eventually I don't know if it was me just finally being able to scream out for help kind of, but the truth slipped out while I was talking to a friend, and that friend ended up confiding in some teachers and counselors, and then from there on in it was kind of just riding with the wind. The police got involved. So after that all happened and the police were involved and all that stuff, I ended up struggling with school for the rest of high school. I went back for a little bit in grade 11, ended up getting kicked out, which was definitely a big slap in the face. It just wasn't showing up enough. So I was pushed out around that time, and then also around that time is when I really started dabbling in like the whole party scene and just like getting into that whole lifestyle, not like really understanding like why I was like so drawn to that lifestyle, which I'll get into a little bit later in this. But yeah, so just struggled through high school, moved all over the place. I ended up moving to Florida when I was like 17. That was pretty crazy. And then moved out to Vancouver with a couple guys to go do some snowboard stuff while I was out there, which was like an unreal experience, and definitely did my fair share of partying out there and had a lot of fun and whatnot. And then like fast forward a bunch, just kind of continued on like that crazy I don't care lifestyle, and it definitely brought me down like some crazy dark paths, and like it brought me a lot of weird, crazy, funny stories and opportunities as well. But at the same time, like I realized after years of binge drinking and just like all sorts of other stuff, that like I was just trying to like numb out this massive thing that happened to me that I like still really hadn't come to a conclusion with. During that time of like partying and whatnot, I was definitely like blessed though to have like all this amazing support that like never let me down, like just the most amazing family of friends. I've met so many people along the way of this crazy journey, and if it weren't for like my snowboarding and skateboarding and all those sports that like I grew up with, one, I don't know where I'd be at, and two, I definitely wouldn't have these friends in my life that are the best friends I could ever ask for. So like growing up like with all those people in my life was so perfect, and snowboarding and skateboarding and all those things that even kept me alive at all, which is so unreal to think about. But in all my darkest days I can think of, or whatever I was struggling with at that time, I knew I could pick up my snowboard, and if it was winter, I wish it was winter all the time, but it's not. But I knew that I could pick up my snowboard and even just go carve down the hill. Like I didn't need to be doing anything crazy. I could just take everything off my mind by just turning. And that's like what keeps me breathing to this day, you know? I would never change in a million years for anything in the whole world being able to grow up with all these crazy sports and meeting all these people. But I have learned that a constant chase for adrenaline isn't always the safest coping mechanism. I learned at a really young age that when you push hard enough, you will definitely find a limit. You will hit the ground. And the ground does hurt, and it comes with injuries. Oh, yeah. And I was unlucky in the sense that for whatever reason, sometimes I don't put my hands out in front of me and I like to land on my head. And so I've had a fair share of concussions, which I think is definitely a large playing factor in some of my mental health issues that I struggle with. Also, I think that the constant chase for adrenaline in action sports and your everyday life can also change into your nightlife extremely easily. I think that sometimes when you want to jump off a 10-foot cliff and then you realize that the 70-foot cliff beside it looks like a really good idea, that it's kind of the same thing with partying and substances. It's pretty easy to run down that road and think going from one drink to 20 drinks is a good idea, and that's not always the case or really ever the case, and you should know when to stop. But I find I have a hard time finding my off button, and that's why I chose to go down a different path and not continue that party life, because I knew that if I continued down it, it was gonna eat me alive, and I probably wouldn't have come out of it if I didn't have the support that I have. So I think when a lot of us think of unhealthy coping strategies, we often will go to the first subjects or topics or whatever you want to call it of like substance abuse issues and those sorts of things, or self-harm. But self-harm can be used or done in so many different ways. I personally self-sabotage good things that are going for me a lot of the time. And one way I've found to do that over the years was I would be in and out of just multiple relationships with girls, whether that was like intimate or not, or I have a hard time in relationships in general. And one of the reasons is I am really scared to get close to people. And over time I've learned that it is an unhealthy coping strategy for me, for sure, because instead of me being able to just sit on my own and learn how to be alone, I am constantly searching for somebody to give me validation on how I'm feeling almost. And it's so weird to like admit this stuff because nobody does talk about this, and I think it is such a big problem with our generation because we're constantly just stuck on these stupid things all the time, and you get pictures and videos sent to you all the time and memes and whatever, so you're constantly being given attention, and that attention in itself can become addicting, and there is a constant chase for it when it gets out of hand, I feel like. That was definitely one of my unhealthy coping strategies, and this video isn't in any way for people to feel bad for me. I'm creating this video purely to know and to teach people that I struggle every day. And you just have to put your best foot forward every day that you wake up. And for a long time, I think I was lacking a drive to better myself, and I would blame a lot of things on some of the crappy stuff that I had been through, and I'm now looking back with a lot of regret. And I was so blessed in these past few months to be able to have a beautiful daughter, and she has given me every reason to live. And I'm not telling you guys to go have a baby and that's going to fix all your problems, because it didn't fix mine. Even though having her and her beautiful mother in my presence, I still continued to mess up and make mistakes, and that came back to bite me. And it wasn't until I hit that rock bottom that's when I realized that I needed to like really turn my life around. And so like that's not long ago. Like, this is like a recent thing that happened, and sometimes you just need to just go down the darkest hole you can to find the light. And every day is a struggle no matter what. Every day is a struggle for me, but the more I'm able to talk about it and share my story, that helps me, and that's why I'm making this video, is just to show people that it's okay to have feelings, it's okay to make mistakes, you're not alone in whatever you're dealing with. When you think that like today's your last day, and I've had lots of those thoughts, like that's not the case. You'll wake up tomorrow, and even if you feel that little bit better and it's not a whole lot better, just remember that the most beautiful things happen to you. I want everybody to feel welcome to share their stories with me and share their stories with the world, because some people need to hear what's going on, because people are lonely nowadays. Even though you have your phone and you think that you're always connected, I feel that everybody is completely the opposite of that, and nobody feels, or not nobody, a lot of people don't feel a genuine connection anymore because it's all so digital or materialistic almost. Whatever your unhealthy coping strategy is, or mechanism, or whatever you want to call it, it's not who you are. You can overcome that struggle, and it might be tough, it might be an addiction, it might be whatever it is, you can fight through it. And like, you're a better person than the negative things you do. Every person's a person no matter what mistakes you make, and there's always somebody out there that's willing to forgive you for those mistakes you've made. And I'm just blessed that I was able to have such an amazing community of people around me that always brought me in with open arms. So, I'm Chad Weiss, and this is my story.